Hello and welcome to the How to CEO podcast. I'm your host, Murray Newland. And in this show, we will be looking at what CEOs need to know about influencer marketing. When you decided to become a CEO, the world changed. Building a $1 billion company is really hard. And we're here to give you the knowledge, the advice, the skills, and the expertise to build that amazing company. So I wanted to cover the topic of influencer marketing because, well, I've been asked about it a lot recently. So I have a big social media presence. I have over 1 million followers on Twitter. I used to have, when Vine was a thing, I actually even had 400,000 followers on Vine, a large presence in lots of other places. So I have actually been asked to be an influencer for both B2B and B2C brands, interestingly. I've also worked with app companies, with SaaS companies, with selling to everything from freelancers through to marketers, through to affiliate marketers. I have run influencer marketing campaigns for all of those different types of company. And here's my thoughts and my takes on influencer marketing and what CEOs need to know about it. Influencer marketing is and has always been very popular. What is influencer marketing? How does it work? And why do you need to know about it as a CEO? Well, any business needs to get its message across to a market. Influencers are people who have uh, access to market, influence on the market, and are usually good at building audience. They're also therefore good at sharing message and understanding how to share messages. One of the best things that you can do when you're launching a new product or program, for example, or want to get a message out, in itself is to actually ask influencers how they would communicate it. Now, you may be great at marketing, you may be great at messaging, but influencers who spend their time building audience, building message, are often really good at understanding those audiences. They're good at understanding how to communicate to those audiences and what's going to be popular and shareable with those audiences. So even if you don't intend to ask them to promote the product, actually getting feedback from influencers as to how to communicate this, how this message, this product, how it would work. They're often a great group of people to understand what's happening in the marketplace right now, to understand how to what's resonating with the audience right now, what their audiences are really passionate about. They have the right audience for you, and then come up with something. They're also really good at being creative about creating campaigns to market to those audiences. So that's some general thoughts and overview on engaging with them. Now, also you need to understand, think about who the audiences you want to work with are, who those influencers are, and how you're going to work with them. So there are many, many different types of influencer. You could think about business-to-business influencers who work in the technology space. It could be everyone from writers, independent bloggers, through to personalities within other companies, through to influencers on LinkedIn, influencers on YouTube, influencers on TikTok, even influencers on Instagram. They're all influencers in different places. Even, dare I say it, podcast influencers. They're all influencers in different places. They all have different audiences and different styles of communicating with those audiences. Some of them are great at communicating really well, communicating products and some about products. Some of them are really good at communicating about different things. So let's take some different scenarios for influencers and look at those. Number one is how do I find influencers? Well, what I would do is I'd find some good easy places to start are to find trending hashtags, trending conversations that your audience are looking for, and look for who is creating popular content within those audiences. Another thing to do is to look at those influencers and search hashtag, for example, on you could easily do that on Twitter and also on Instagram, and see who's got doing hashtag in an ad or hashtag paid or hashtag sponsored, as well as the types of content that you're looking for. Because that will tell you also people who are running sponsored campaigns for competitors. If they're running sponsored campaigns for competitors, they're also probably likely to be willing to run campaigns for you. Also look at which of those influencers is, even if they're not saying paid or promoted or sponsored, who is working with those specific types of tools that your competitors are using, and find out how you can work with them. Now, it's really interesting. You need to really dig down into their audience and understand why their audience likes them. So, for example, on Instagram, let's take just that one example, although this is applicable across many different sectors. I once looked at doing some work for a yoga brand. They found a bunch of influencers on Instagram who were in the yoga space. Now, they wanted to sell products to yoga people. Their target audience was mainly female, so they found some female yoga influencers. And you might think that they would have the perfect audience. But looking at lots of those yoga influencers, actually they were posting more hot bikini photos than other yoga photos. And then most of the audience were men, and therefore that would not be a great audience for them. Similarly, and switching that around, I was speaking to someone who ran a makeup brand, and they had looked at a number of celebrities. Some of those celebrities would be seemingly obvious as influencers to men because they were attractive females, but actually they found that some of those attractive females actually had mainly female audiences. And so the way to tackle those female audiences was to use those artists to promote those particular things. Also, look at what content the influencers are making, why they're making it, and how they're making it. And really trying to find out what those influencers are passionate about at the time. It's easy with, for example, with travel influencers. If they're traveling to different places, they need tools for travel. They want to travel more. If you can help them along their journey, then that's really important. But really try to understand what is it that they're passionate about. For example, I know a really big music influencer. He has over 10 million subscribers on his YouTube channel, but he's actually really passionate about yoga. He's a male guy, does a lot of yoga stuff. I don't think he's ever worked with a yoga brand, but that's a thing that they're missing because he has a huge audience and he's really passionate about it. He does yoga every day. So no one's managed to put those two elements together and understand what he's looking for. So what are influencers looking for, and how can you connect with them? Well, in the business-to-business space, one of the best campaigns I've been part of was a Verizon campaign on the Verizon, I believe it was Verizon, it's going back 15 years, where they interviewed influencers on their website. What that enabled them to do was to reach out and connect with those people and give them the exposure of being on the Verizon site. That was great for those influencers, and it built quite a natural connection that then, hey, they might also then write about the company. Obviously, if you're after product reviews, sending the products to people to do product reviews and finding people who specifically do product reviews is really important. Something else that you can do is if you're looking at the business-to-business space, if you're having a conference, invite the influencers to your conference, invite them to speak, put together a panel of those influencers. They're going to be at your conference. You'll know that they're going to attend because they're going to be on the panel. And if they make content every day and your event is a day, it's highly likely they'll make content at your event because they have to make some content that day. So there are ways to think about how you're going to position it. And also, if you spend a whole day with them, you get great mind share with them. So you're able to share that with them. Now, how much are you going to pay them? Well, that is $1 million question. What I would say is that often look at what you can do for them. Can you do stuff for them that's more valuable than money? Do you have a big audience as a brand that you can get them in front of? Are they launching a book? Can you help them give exposure for their book to the right audience? If you have great matching audiences, how can you do that? Would your customers be interested in that book, for example, that you could help them promote? What I would say is that working with really big celebrities can be a massive boost for global brands. I've had a lot of success working with people who are not the biggest celebrities, but maybe working with B and C-list celebrities who will often try harder and be less demanding and might have a smaller but actually more tight-knit fan community and fan base. So try and find people who have a committed, engaged fan base who really talk about the types of products and services you're providing and work with them. That will also be a great starting point for getting things moving. Now, it may also be the case that you need to pay the influencers. Once again, my take is that if you have influencers who have an agent, by the time they have an agent, that agent is not going to do any deal that's not worth a few $1,000s to them, given they may be making 20%. The 20% of any deal has to be worth, maybe more, maybe less, maybe 10%. But if you're dealing with an agent, they're not going to want to do any deal that makes them less than a few $1,000s. They're only getting 10%. Your deal has to be in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars for it to make sense to do any deal. And if they're doing deals that size, they're probably cutting deals with major brands. And do you, as a business, have the budget to compete with those major brands? If you're a major brand, that's awesome. If you're not a major brand, that makes it really difficult. So if you find people who haven't made it to the stage of having an agent yet, yes, you have to work a lot harder to find more of them. But once again, your money is more likely to mean more to those people. I found that they're trying often work harder and will get you better results. It depends what you're looking for there. Now, working with bigger celebrities, one of the key things to do is can you use the content that they make for you and their brand image in the advertising and particularly on the landing page to the sign up or with the product. So, for example, I worked with a international celebrity who was with an internationally famous brand. When we worked with him, not only did he make content for the app, they then took their profile, they used that in ads on Facebook. The Facebook ad conversion click was really high because they were a massive celebrity brand. And then they also used their likeness on the landing page, and that rapidly increased the conversion rate on the landing page. So by putting those elements together, they were able to get a lot of reach from working with that major celebrity. It also gave the celebrity a lot of exposure. So I think all of those things are important when thinking about working with celebrities and influencers. The other thing to think about is what is the brand alignment and the true brand alignment beyond just the reach? Do they really line up with the way that your company's philosophy, your company believes? And do their fans buy into that on their behalf and on your behalf? I'm Mo Newlands. If you've got questions about influencer marketing, please do reach out to me. You've been listening to the How to CEO podcast. If you like this show, please share it. If you'd like to be on the show, please let me know. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm your host, Mo Newlands. Thank you for subscribing. Please share, and I'll see you next time.